This is the Political Spotlight.
The Political Spotlight is a joke. It's more like a political flop.
Nobody listens to Bilbrey.
He's just a wannabe podcaster. No one takes him seriously.
He is a rude, crude dude that will never go any further than broadcasting from his mother's basement.
Bilbrey is a wrecking ball for Indiana politics.
Grab another box of Twinkies and generic cola, Bilbrey.
And get back to your microphone and your audience of nobodies.
The Political Spotlight is a joke. It's
He is like a rude, crude dude that will never go
Bilbrey's a wrecking ball for Indiana politics. Shut that stupid Bilbrey up.
All right, folks. I'm sorry we are running a little bit behind here, but we've got a lot of important information, and we've got some breaking news that have just came in right as we were going live. I didn't intend on this to be happening, so we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to get right into it. Do me a favor, if you would, and go ahead and smash that like button. If you are here new and you have not subscribed, please consider subscribing to YouTube. If you are watching on Twitter or you're watching on Facebook, welcome. We love you. We appreciate you being here, however you're here, but really you want to be watching via YouTube. YouTube is where it's at. It helps you. You get to see more comments. You get to see more people's input. You get to have more input. And it doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. But watch where you are, and we will deal with it either way. Just consider jumping to YouTube at some point. That might be cool if you could do it. Okay. I'm also going to say, please share this show to any Muncie people, any Delaware County people, anyone that is interested in the situation that we talked about yesterday, the child in the hot car resulting in death. I don't really know what to call it. It's a tragedy, but I don't know what to call the incident. We can call it the Nathan Coffey incident, but that seems like it belittles the victim. And I don't want to use the child's name. I'm not going to do that, and I would prefer people not use it. I saw somebody was commenting to me, and they actually said the name. Please don't do that. I have not talked with Nathan. I've not talked with a mother. I've not talked with anyone in the family. I will say that I am open to talking to anybody that will reach out to me or that wants to talk. I will talk to anybody in the family. But we don't want to do that. We don't need to. I know the child's name. You might know the child's name. And it's not like it's one of these things like you don't want to forget it. I'm just not trying to hurt. This topic hurts people just talking about it. Obviously, I know that. And I want to get to the point where we get the information and we stop talking about it as soon as possible and get on with either getting justice or remembering the child, but not doing it in a way that is bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. Listen, it's this cold down here, man. It's so hot outside, but it's got to be cold. And it's a whole thing. I'm always congested too. But so we're going to be talking about some breaking news as it relates to that situation. And we are going to talk about that. That's very important. But tonight's show, the name of tonight's show is The Other Shoe Appears to Be Dropping. Okay. Episode 681. And this is an important episode. I have some breaking news as it relates to the whole Coutinho situation. I know a lot of people are interested in what's going on with Coutinho. So we've got a lot of Coutinho situation that we're going to be talking about. Okay. And then we also have some records that we'll be going over as it relates to the city of Muncie, the acting mayor, and compensation there. So we have three big stories that we're going to be talking about. Two of the stories I had planned to talk about. And one of them I had not planned to talk about, and it literally just got dumped in my lap at the last moment. But I feel like we want to get this out because I feel like I need to get it. I wondered if I should hold it off until tomorrow so I could advertise for it. But this is not about like, ooh, I need the most amount of clicks and views. I want as many people to see this as possible because I hope that it helps spread the word and get the message out there. So I'm going to rely on you guys to do that. And I put it in at the very last minute as breaking news. We will be covering that. So we will do that. So story number one is the Coutinho situation. Give me just 1 second here. Let me get this because okay, give me 1 second here. I want to make sure I've got things lined up here. Okay, good. That's right. So story number one is the Coutinho situation. Story number two is the acting mayor of Muncie's compensation question. The acting mayor of Muncie's compensation question. Ooh, I like that. That's a good title. So we will leave that there. The acting mayor of Muncie's compensation question. I think that's hot. That sounds good. So we'll leave that at that. And then that's that. And then the story two is the breaking news. I have the special prosecutor's report. And I think that while we are waiting on the police reports, we are waiting for the state police to get their records, get the reports, get the interviews, interrogations, the body cameras, and all that information to us. I feel it's very important to go through this because this is what the decisions. Listen, at the end of the day, the police reports will tell me a lot because I'm a former police officer. I've written reports. I understand how that stuff works. And it will be good for you guys to see and to hear that stuff too. And that's important. And we might learn stuff that we won't necessarily learn from here. We might learn how we got to this. But at the end of the day, hearing what Chris Gall and James Luttrell have formulated might shine some light on why ever they did whatever they did. All right. So I want to find out, and I'm going to probably need Kate's assistance for this. I want to know, what do you think we should do first? Do you think that we should do the prosecutor's report first? Or do you think that I give people time to get in? If you guys want to comment in the chat and let me know, generally I would just go 1, 2, 3, 4. But because this is breaking news, I want people who might not have heard the word to get here. What do you think we should do, Kate? Kate says, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know you were talking to me. What do you want me to do, chat people? Do we go on with the Coutinho story? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on with yeah, that's what we'll do. Here's what we'll do. And this is up to you people to get people here. Because people need to see this. So we're going to, we will go in reverse order. We will do the Jeff Howe story, the acting mayor of Muncie, because that should be quick. We will then do the Coutinho story, and we will do the special prosecutor thing at the end. So if you're interested in seeing that, you're going to have to stick around. And I'm not doing that as clickbait, but I want people to be able to be here. So we're going to do this acting mayor of Muncie stuff, and we will do that. So for those of you that maybe don't recall, I issued a record request to the city of Muncie back. It's been a minute now, and I've been waiting for some records from the city of Muncie, and I was thinking that they would take forever to get this to me. I just honestly thought that we would never get this, and it would be a million years until they provided me these records, and we would, everything would be out of luck. So last night, I actually sent an email to Amber. It's the second email that I sent. Kate, I just sent you something. Can you put it up in the overlays when you get a chance? Thank you. So last night I sent a follow-up to Amber, and I wasn't rude or anything. I was just to the point. And I simply just said, contracts. Good afternoon, all. I sent in the record request asking for any and all professional service contracts between the city and acting mayor, recently appointed deputy mayor and MRC director, George Jeff Howell. And while I'm certain this process could take the city weeks or months to comply, I'm hoping we can expedite the process and make it get done today or by Monday at the latest. This is something I sent on Friday, June 5th. I'm hoping Monday at the latest, something like that. It shouldn't be a difficult task, as his first contract was from February of 2024, and there should or could only be a couple of others from maybe 2025 or 2026, and they should be readily available. Is this something that we can do? FYI, I'm going to submit a record request for the invoices that he submitted since February of 2024. There should only be a total of 29 invoices he's turned in, and that shouldn't be a long process either. But I want to make sure that these two requests are seen as separate, because there is no reason to hold the contracts until the invoices are gathered. I just want to give you a heads up. Also, in an unrelated matter, and this is just a teaser for you guys, I know we've talked about this, I want to clear something up. Is Human Resources Director Patty Goddard still working for the city? Is she on vacation or on some other kind of leave? Okay, and so I've asked that. And the reason I've asked that is because we found out, and we're finding out, that there's all kinds of people currently out. Not only is the mayor out, Carl Malone was out for a number of weeks due to cancer surgery of some kind. It's very, very concerning. I hate to hear that. My thoughts and prayers are with him. I hope nothing's wrong with Patty. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why there's so many people that would be out currently. And I wish that they would explain this to us. We need to know that the work of the city is getting done. So I sent that in on Friday, and I was like, what is going on? Why are we not getting anything else? So then I just basically sent a follow-up email last night, and the follow-up email last night basically said, Howell's contracts. Comms Director Green, how are we coming along with the various contracts for George Jeff Howell with the city from February 2024 through now? It shouldn't be too difficult to provide these contracts. Please let me know how things are going. Okay, so that's what I said. So then today that frog is back jumping against my window. I just heard him jumping. I've got a frog jumping against the window. Very, very crazy situation. So then today at 8:40 this morning, so promptly, I received the following email, and basically the email just said, please see attached, thank you. I mean, it couldn't get any more cold between Amber and I if we were in my basement. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty damn cold down here, and it's what it feels like. You know, it's pretty interesting for two people who used to be friends. And I don't feel like I've done anything out of pocket. I'm sure she thinks I do, but you know, it is what it is. So kind of interesting. So we received 3 contracts from the city of Muncie. Okay. We received a contract from the city of Muncie pertaining to George Jeff Howe and his employment with the city, professional standards contract. It's just a regular contract. You've seen this because we've went over it, okay? Now, this says this agreement contract made and entered into this 15th day of February 2024. Now look closely at the 15th day of February 2024 between the city of Muncie and Jeffrey Howe. Okay, and you guys have seen this. We're not going to spend a lot of time going through all 7 pages. If you want to see all 7 pages, it's posted on my social media. I have it in links in the other episodes that we've done. You can find this. If you can't find it and you want to see it, contact me and I will get it to you or tell you where you can find it. The important thing about this contract is when we come down here to the second page, this is a contract for Jeff Howe to work for the city of Muncie as the Muncie Redevelopment Commission Director. Okay, that's what his job is. Okay, that's what the scope of services are. All right. And it's pretty basically open. He basically can do what the mayor wants. All right, now this is important. Compensation. Professional agrees that the compensation for services to be provided to city hereunder shall be $1,860 compensation per month for the term of this contract. Okay, $1,860 a month. All right, which doesn't turn out to be a whole lot of money, honestly. I was pretty shocked by this. Okay, so we scroll on down here and reading throughout the rest of the contract, we see the term, unless otherwise terminated in accordance with the termination provisions set forth in Section 8. Herein, this agreement shall be in effect from the effective date through December 31st, 2024. This contract may be renewed under the same terms and conditions, subject to the approval of the mayor of the city of Muncie. The term of the renewed contract may not be longer than the term of the original contract. Now, my friends, take issue with 5.2 because it says subject to the approval of the mayor of Muncie. Okay? I have an issue with this. Because contracts are supposed to be approved by the Board of Works. Okay? It's not subject to the approval of the mayor. It's subject to the approval of the mayor and the Board of Works, if they so choose, want to put that in. But the Board of Works needs to vote on this. I do not believe that this is something that Mayor Ridenour should just be able to willy-nilly enter into, specifically on these basically boilerplate professional services contracts, because that's what they are. These basically professional services contracts are up there in the office, and anytime somebody's going to enter into some kind of contract with City of Muncie, they grab this and then they, just basically insert their crap into the blanks, and voila, we have a professional services contract. Okay. Now, obviously, that's not what Dustin Clark did. Dustin Clark completed his own contract, which was just a complete shit show. But, we had both of these to look at. So this is interesting, okay? So we come down here, and we're going to look at the down here to the end, okay? So the big part about this contract is that he's getting paid starting the month after, starting in March of 2024. He is to get paid $1,860 per year. The contract is going to end on December 31st of 2024, and they can renew it, but it has to be subject to the terms. I think it has to be subject to the terms maybe laid out in the contract, but also the laws and the codes and the ways of the state of Indiana. And the fact that the Board of Works needs to be aware of this, in my opinion, is a big deal. Okay. So we see this here, Jeffrey Howe, we see everybody here, and blah, 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 blah. We get down here. Okay. Now I want you to pay a close attention to Dan Ridenhour's signature. I want you to pay close attention to Jeff Howe's signature, and then Jeffrey Howe's printed name there. Okay. So we've got that. All right, this is contract 1. This is from February of 2024. Now, I'm going to put this overlay up and let you see this overlay, and I'm going to tweak it here so we can get it all in the screen here. There we go. And we can save it. Okay, so this right here is important. Per the city's records that any of us can find going to the city's website, we have a list here of some concerning payments that have been issued to Jeffrey Howe. George Jeffrey Howe, description, MRC contract, invoice date, March 1st, 2024, payment date, March 8th, 2024, payment in the amount of $1,860. Okay. His contract expired on December 31st, and we assume that they renewed his contract, but we've never seen anything come before the Board of Works. So we question this. Who approved this contract? Who approved any of these contracts? Who approved any of them? Okay. But we have one here. Invoice date 1/1/25. Dude, this guy does not wait. Payment date 1/10/2025. Payment in the amount of $1,950. So we've got a little bit of an increase here. Okay, we see what we got here with the increase. The next one is George Jeffrey Howe, MRC contract 1/1/2026. Payment date of 1/9/2026. And looky here, we are up to $2,145. Okay. That then brings us to the last entry on there, which is the MRC contract. Invoice date 6/1/2026. Payment date 6/5/2026. Payment in the amount of $3,145. Now, what this means, ladies and gentlemen, is this is $1,000 more than he got paid in January. $180 some more than he got paid in January before, $90 more than he got paid the March before. And so basically between March 1st, March 8th, and January 10th, there has to be a contract. And then between March 10th of 2025 and March 9th of 2026, there has to be a contract. And then between or January 9th, 2026, then between January 9th, 2026 and June 5th, 2026, there needs to be a contract. Now, that's the one that's very strange to me, because why would there be a contract just in the middle of a year? Because so far we've not seen something like that occur. Well, we just went through the contract from February of 2024. Now let's go through the contract that we will see here dated as the 2nd day of December 2024. Okay. by and between the City of Muncie and Jeff Howell, hereinafter professional. Whereas the city and professional entered into a professional services agreement on February 1, 2024, a copy of which is attached hereto as Exhibit 1, and which is hereinafter referred to as original agreement. City and professional desire to further extend the original term of the agreement. Professional has ably and effectively provided services to the city with the scope of services section of the original agreement, and whereas the city and professional will both benefit from continuity of extended professional services agreement that will permit professional to continue to provide valuable, beneficial professional services on behalf of the city until December 31st of 2027. Now, I thought that they could not do that. If you go back and you look at the other contract, I didn't think that they could change the terms without totally redrawing the contracts. Is that not what you remember? Is that what you remember? And I tell you what I'm going to do, Kate, so you can see this and have this. I'm going to give me 1 second here. I didn't do that the right way. I am going.
States it cannot extend beyond the length of the original term.
Say that again.
It specifically states that if they renew it, it cannot be beyond the length of the original term. It says that.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
So
right.
It's 1 year. It's 1 year. You're allowed to do 1 year. That's what you did before. 1 year.
Yeah. Right. Because that's what the first contract. Now, I just emailed you all three contracts, so you can, so you can look at them and jump ahead if you so choose, or look ahead, or look back. Okay, so there we see something interesting here because they've changed the scope, which I didn't think they could do. We'll look at that here in a minute. Okay, going on. Whereas the parties here to, exactly, meaning 1 year. Whereas the parties here to wish to continue all terms and conditions of the original agreement as previously written, except for the new terms and conditions as set forth herein. Now, therefore, in consideration of the mutual covenants contained herein, and with the intent to be legally bound, the city and professionals enter into the following addendum. The parties agree to extend the term of professional services agreement upon the following terms and conditions. Well, then, if that's the case, why do we have any more agreements past this? We shouldn't have that past this. So that's interesting. But okay, let's play their game. Section, unless otherwise terminated in accordance with the termination provisions set forth in Section 8 of the original agreement, the professional service agreement shall be in effect from the effective date through December 31st of 2027. Compensation. The city and the professional agree that the professional shall be compensated a rate of $1,950 per month effective January 1st, 2025, with the amount of monthly compensation to be adjusted for each subsequent year as mutually agreed by the city and professional in an amount not to exceed an increase of 10% annually. Okay. So now they're going to say it's just going to go up 10% annually. That's just what's going to happen. 10% every year. 10% every year. And that's what it does, right? Oh, no, that's not what it does. Okay. The parties hereto further agree that all terms and conditions of the original agreement will remain in full force and effect, except as modified herein. And now it's signed by Dan Ridenauer and Jeffrey Howell. And there's no one else to sign. Nobody else is involved. Nothing happens. Nobody approves it. It is what it is. They did this in their closet. They did this in the car on the way to work. I don't know where or when or why or how they did this, but it doesn't seem, I got a problem with this. And they're going to say, well, of course you do. We all should have a problem with this, period. Okay. We're not done. All right. So that's contract number 2. Contract number 3, ladies and gentlemen, is right here. And this is interesting. Okay. This contract.
This is bullshit.
Is interesting.
I read ahead. What
yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah. That's why I said you were going to be upset here. So this is a professional services contract addendum. Addendum is made this 21st day of May, 2026, by and between the city of Muncie and Jeff Howe. Now listen, here's interesting to me. What's interesting to me is on May 21st of 2026, Mayor Ridenour was still leading people to believe that Jeff Green was going to be the replacement. Okay. So why would they have just done this all of a sudden out of the blue in 2021 of May? Didn't they have other things to worry about, like other than doing this? All right, listen. Whereas the city and professional entered into a professional services contract dated February 15th, 2024, a copy of which is attached here to Exhibit 1 and which is herein referenced as original agreement. And whereas the city and Howe desire to further expand the scope of services set forth in the original agreement and provide supplemental compensation directly related to the expanded scope of services. Okay, I want to make sure that you guys can see this. Whereas the city and Howe desire to further expand the scope of services set forth in the original agreement and provide supplemental compensation directly related to the expanded scope of services, and whereas the parties hereto wish to continue all terms and conditions of the original agreement as previously written, except to specify enumerated expanded services and supplemental increase in compensation directly related hereto. Now, therefore, be in consideration of the mutual covenants contained herein, and with the intent to legally bound the city professional enter into the following addendum. The parties hereto agreed to expand the original scope of services by adding the following specifically enumerated paragraphs. Section 2.1, professionals shall provide general oversight, strategic guidance, and ongoing monitoring for the period from May 1st. Professionals shall provide general oversight, strategic guidance, and ongoing monitoring for the period from May 1st through September 30th, 2026. I want to know what he was doing from May 1st to June 1st. What was he doing? What specifically was this jackhole doing? Okay. Between May and June, when the mayor was here doing the mayor's thing. And when did he become the deputy mayor? On May 5th, which is a lot closer to May 1 than May 29th. You know, maybe that May 5th thing doesn't seem so crazy now. All right, let's go on. Section 2.1, professionals shall provide regular summary progress reports to the mayor of the city of Muncie or the mayor's designee on a weekly basis. So is he talking to himself in the mirror?
Apparently. Again, this proves the conflict of interest.
It absolutely proves the conflict of interest.
The mayor's designee?
Yeah.
So on the 21st, was he still thinking that Jeff Green was going to do the mayor's office? What the hell is this guy providing oversight, strategic guidance, and monitoring on?
Yeah, right. Maybe he's watching the flock cameras.
What are you monitoring? What are you overseeing? What?
And you know what? This guy's not going to answer a damn question. I've emailed him like 3 times. He's not returning emails. I don't have his phone number. Anybody have his phone number out there? Somebody get me this man's phone number. I'll keep you quiet.
This is just hold on, Jackie, because
yeah. We're not done. Yeah, we're not done. We're not done. C, Section 21 or 2.1H, professional shall provide monthly status advisory regarding TUI pools operations to the City of Muncie's Parks and Recreational Board during the months of June, July, August, and September of 2026. So, does anybody remember when we were at the park board meeting just a couple of weeks ago? And they were talking about not having management. They didn't know what they were going to do. And would there be management? Would there not be management? And why is this man doing it? Why is Carl Malone not doing it? This is a problem. And I hope the city council's paying attention to this. And I'm telling you, the city council, it's time to get off your asses and totally eat 32.08 up, totally take it into your body and become the investigative counsel that you need to be and figure out what the hell's going on here. Okay. You're right, Alva. If he was in this role, oh, you know why? That's funny. You're right. You're right. But see, it says he didn't need to be there in May, although he's doing general oversight strategic guidance from May 1st through September 30th. He only needed to be at the parks morning meeting from June, July, August, and September. Okay. What a joke. Section D, Section 2.1I, professional is expected to devote a minimum of 10 hours per month each month from May through September 2026 in the performance of the duties related to TUI pool. What? Is he a bodyguard? Is he a lifeguard? Is he stocking the pretzels? What is he doing for TUI? 10 hours a month. The parties here to agree that professional will be compensated for performing the specific enumerated duties as set forth herein as follows. Section 4. For services provided by professional pursuant to Section 2.1 F, G, H, and I, professional shall be compensated at the rate of $100 per hour. Now, wait a minute.
Times 10 hours is $1,000 a month to pretend he gives a flying fuck about
Whoa. That's just for TUI pool.
That's just the TUI pool. So that's on top of his 2145, so now we know how we got the 3145.
But what if he takes more than leave off TUI pool.
What if he takes 20 hours?
What if he takes 20 hours to do A or B?
Yeah.
What if he takes 10 hours on A, 10 hours on B? Let's because the 10 hours is in D. So what if he takes 5 hours in A, 10 hours in B, and 15 hours in C? Okay, so that's an extra 20 hours there. Then a 10 hours on D.
Yeah.
So is he going to be, what is happening here? So, and I thought the mayor said he would.
through the end of September, which is interesting too.
Yeah, right. I thought the mayor said that he would not be getting compensated for his role as deputy mayor.
Being the mayor. So on top of being the deputy mayor, This guy is the director for the economic development, and he's also apparently the overseer for Tui Pools. So
which I could otherwise call.
He has 3 jobs now.
Which I would otherwise call the deputy mayor.
But he's not getting paid for the deputy mayor job. He's getting paid as an overseer for the pool and for.
But it's not just the pool. He's also getting paid for C, B, and A.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's this professional services extra compensation. But how about we say, hey,
is a dog's hind leg.
You're not going to get compensated for the deputy mayor position.
Yeah.
But we will compensate you for professional services.
Yeah, and we'll make it look like it's important.
Yeah.
And you bill us whatever you think you want.
And you know what?
I love that there's a minimum number of hours, but not a maximum.
Yeah, there's a minimum. Yeah. Hell, he can do whatever he wants. Yeah, he could do 50 hours. And here's the deal. I don't care about this. It's not $1,000 isn't a big deal. Who gives a shit about the $1,000? Here's what matters. It matters. This matters because they lied. This is a lie. We've caught them. This is dirty. They've underhanded this. Why was this not put forward in these documents? Why did they not talk about this? Why did the mayor not talk about this? Why did the council not know anything about this? The Muncie City Council does not know about this. Why did Kristopher Bilbrey have to request this? To keep everything under control. This is on brand. It's on right now. Brand does his stuff with the county. Pun. Sounds like Shoemaker and UC. Yes. Came on. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Parties here to further agree that all other terms and conditions of the original agreement and addenda will remain in full force and effect, except as modified here and and then the signature. Now, I just want you, I don't know, maybe this is his signature. I want you to look at this Dan Ridenhour signature. Okay, I want you to look at that Dan Ridenhour signature there. You look how he goes up. Yeah, that's probably him. It's him because of how he makes his D. All right. I mean, look, it's no, they're not doing anything funky. It is what it is. I'd like to see the originals to these. That's definitely true, Space Cat. It's a den of thieves and whores up there. Liars and backstabbers and cheaters and swindlers and whores. Both men and women. I'm not just denigrating women here. Men can be whores too. So there it is, folks. I'm not done with this. I have a whole lot more I want to say about this. I'm all kinds of mad about this. You guys should be mad about this. You guys should be extremely upset. We should all be upset about this. The council should be extremely upset about this. The Board of Works should be upset about this. They're not going to say a damn thing because they don't care. Does any of them have an OFH? Dan does. Step on my... Well, never mind. Yeah, this is it's gross. Like, you know what? You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to here would be a funny test. I'd like to contact Matt Kantz and say, Matt Kantz, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Because I bet he'd be like, oh, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And the minute someone says, oh, yeah, this is fine, you don't want those people anywhere in government. Jackie, great question. Was the Parks Board informed about this? No clue. No clue. I'll be going to the Parks Board meeting and asking them. Okay. And you are absolutely right. He would be okay with it. 1,000% he would be okay with this. He would say, yep, it's just the cost. You know, it is what it is. You're making a big deal about this. I don't know why you're making such a big deal about this. Such a... So that's that, folks. I'm going to be posting that out on social media. You will all be able to get copies of that. If people are interested in it, I'll send you copies of it. I'm going to post it on social media. Wait till after the video. We'll get everything out there. But that is important. That's a big thing, and I want you guys to be aware of that. All right, moving on. Okay, we're getting ready to get to, I know a lot of people are here, and they want to hear the special prosecutor's report. We're going to get to it. But before we do that, we're going to move on to the Coutinho situation. But before we move on to the Coutinho situation, I do want just quickly to take a quick break. You guys sit tight. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 681st episode of the Political Spotlight, and we'll be back and talk about the Coutinho situation. Sit tight. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we are going to be talking about this Coutinho situation. I heard the street department's running the pool. Nobody knows what's going on. Who's on first? You know what I mean? Nobody knows. No one has any clue of what's going on anywhere at any time for any reason. Okay? Absolutely crazy. So, the Coutinho situation, ladies and gentlemen, we've been waiting for this moment. The other shoe appears to be dropping. So earlier today, I was contacted by some sources of mine in Delaware County government. And I want to talk to you about what happened because I made a post on Facebook about this. And my post on Facebook seemed rather nice and it wasn't very bitey at anyone. All right. But I need you guys to understand how this went down. I kind of have a problem with how this went down, and I think that you guys should as well. So, again, just quickly, Meagan Coutinho is the former office manager for the Delaware County EMS. The EMS and county government, EMS bosses and county government found some major irregularities in February of this year, 2026. They decided to have a chat with Mrs. Coutinho about these issues, and she ended up resigning her position at the end of that conversation. Quickly thereafter, the state police got involved and started investigating what was going on. And on March 23rd, 2026, a Monday, the Delaware County Commissioners quickly met in like a 7-minute meeting, and they announced that there was an investigation. They announced that there were some affected county employees, and they announced the suspension of 2 employees. They suspended Mike Ashley, the director of the Delaware County Emergency Medical Services, EMS. They suspended him for 3 days, and they suspended him without pay. And that was a pretty wild thing because I was like, wow, that's actually a punishment, no pay. They then suspended John Coutinho indefinitely with pay, and I thought that was interesting. And so all this time from March 23rd until recently, we've been waiting. Is something going to happen? Something going to happen? And then on the 3rd of June, Wednesday, the 3rd of June, we found out that Meagan Coutinho was arrested. Meagan Coutinho was charged with 6 counts of theft from the golf boosters, theft from Delaware County, theft from Delaware County EMS, theft from Delaware County again, official misconduct, and conflict of interest. I have been looking for her to be charged and have been waiting for her to be charged any day. Now, because she bonded out of jail, there is no hurry to charge her. They could charge her at any time. It doesn't matter. I have heard from my sources in state police that are saying they're being told that she has not been charged because the prosecutor's office is looking at the possibility of adding additional charges that might fit her situation. So this is going to be interesting. That being said, I have been wondering, as we all have been wondering, what's going on with John Coutinho? You know what I mean? Like, for real though. For real though. What did he know? When did he know? Did he know? Did he not know? You know what I mean? Did John Coutinho know? He had to have known. He had to know. How could he not? Was he involved? If so, how much longer will he be keeping his job? Somebody's calling me mid-show. I don't know why you'd be doing that. How much longer will you be keeping your job while you're off on paid leave, paid vacation? And when will the arrest be coming? Will that be coming? Is something like that going to be coming? Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our wait is almost over. So today, at about 2:30 or 3 o'clock, I was notified by a couple of different people in connection with Delaware County government, and they informed me that John Coutinho was no more, that he was terminated from Delaware County government. And I was like, okay, I want to double check before I make this accusation. I want to see what's going on. And so I just said, screw it. Screw it. I'm just going to call the HR department, because in the state of Indiana, like many other places, a public official, a public servant working, you can call and ask certain questions. Now, I can't call and ask anything that pertains to the investigation or personnel. I can't call and be like, hey, give me his social security number, or tell me what you guys talked about before you kicked him out the door. Can't ask that stuff, but I can say, do you still have John Coutinho employed in Delaware County? If so, what is his job title? What's his most recent salary? Things like that. So I contacted the Delaware County HR department, Human Resources, and I said, hello, I'm wanting to check an employment verification. And I was talking to the director of HR. And the director of HR, Josh Jarvis, said, okay, how may I help you? Please give me the last name of the individual that you're looking like. He knew like this was just standard operating procedure, no issue. And I said, okay, the last name is Coutinho. And when I said that, he was like, okay, sir, what is your name? And I'm like, well, in my mind, like, why is that the question everybody, I hate that question. There are no stupid questions except one. And the stupid question is, what is your name? Don't ask me my name. You don't have a right to ask me my name. You can't hold this information until I tell you who I am. It doesn't matter if my name is Chris, or my name is Les, or my name is Kate, or my name is Danny, or my name is John, or my name is Beelzebub. What does it matter? You still got to tell me the same. You can't hold information, so it truly doesn't matter. So what do? I'm looking around my room trying to come up with a fake name. And I'm like, my name's John. I'm calling to ask about John Coutinho. My name's John. He's like, what's your last name? I'm like, Coutinho. My name's John Coutinho, and I'm calling about I'm calling about the other John Coutinho. I'm not the John Coutinho that you are terminating. I'm another just totally non-thefty John Coutinho, and I'm wanting to know what's going on with my brother from another mother. So he's like, I don't know if I'm comfortable. And I was like, look, you got to tell me this. All I'm asking is, does John Coutinho still work for Delaware County? And this is what I hear from the director of HR. That is an appointed position, and that is no longer an appointed position. What does that mean? Does that mean that is an appointed position, but the person in it's no longer there, so it's no longer appointed? And I was like, okay, so just for clarification, does John Coutinho still work for Delaware County? To which Director Jarvis says, yes, John Coutinho is still employed with Delaware County. And I'm like, all right, you've now given me two separate answers, and they mean different things. So I'm going to have to ask you one more time to clarify your answer. Is John Coutinho still appointed or employed with Delaware County in any capacity? And if so, what is that? And Jarvis says, that's all the information I feel comfortable giving you at this time. Click. And he hangs up on me. And I'm like, oh, no, you didn't. So then I'm like, now I got to call back and tell this fool who I really am and put the fear of, now you're going to be on the show. So I called him and I was like, oh, hey, it's Kristopher Bill. I changed my voice. Like, it was me when I called the first time because I wasn't trying. So then I called trying to be Kristopher Bilbrey, and I tried to do the Kristopher Bilbrey accent. Hey, what's going on here? It's Kristopher Bilbrey. You're talking to my friend all wrong. I'm like, I called and I didn't want to give you my name because I don't need to give you my name. But you asked me my name, so I gave you a fake name because it doesn't matter. And you can't ask people their name. I mean, you can, but it's stupid. And now you need to fix this before this becomes a bigger situation because you made this dumber now. You gave me literally two different answers. Like, what is going on? So I then immediately fired off a text message to Commissioner Scott. Damn it, that's his... to Stephen Brand. Ugh, I hate that. Yes, I will. So sorry, I was getting a text message. People are asking me for some questions.
And check your Facebook messages too.
Oh shit. Okay, give me a second.
I'm getting tagged, telling you to look at it. There's some information, I guess. that needs to. Don't burn the source, bud.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting this here. Let me see. Man. Okay, I have all these things. If you people have been sending me this, I will look into this stuff and I will let you know what's going on. And if I can talk about any of that stuff, I will. Thank you for sending me that stuff. And if ever you send me something that you think that I need to see, feel free to reach out to Kate and tell her to tell me to look, and I will get it. Okay, so I reach out to these people, and I'm like, what's going on? So I'm like, all right, I'm just not messing around. So I then, and this is hilarious to me. I start sending a record request, and I'm typing up a record request to send to Jarvis, Commissioner S. Brand, HR Director J. Jarvis, County Attorneys J. Brook, and D. Struble. This is a record request for records under the Indiana Access to Public Record Act, sent 6/10/2026. I'm requesting an opportunity to inspect or obtain copies of the following public records related to the following: the employment or appointment status of John Coutinho as Director of Delaware County's Emergency Management Agency or any other position within Delaware County government as of 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. Is he employed and active, employed and on paid leave, employed and on unpaid leave, or other? If the answer is other, please specify what other means. If John Coutinho is still currently employed / appointed with Delaware County, I'm asking what his current title is. I am requesting John Coutinho's date of hire, and if he is no longer employed or appointed, I am asking for his date of separation from Delaware County. I am requesting John Coutinho's most recent salary information. It is important for everyone reading this to note that I am not requesting any information or records related to any ongoing internal or external investigation. The requested information is in the public's interest and will significantly contribute to the public's understanding of the nature of Delaware County government and how it operates. The Indiana Access to Public Record Act requires a response within an appropriate amount of time. If you deny any Okay. I'm getting ready to press send, and I get an email from the county attorney before I even hit send. And the email says, send forward a request so we can answer you promptly. And I'm like, oh God, you guys, like, they start, as soon as they realized that, oh God, it's Bilbrey calling up here, they started like calling, attorney, fire, everybody's going crazy. So here, ladies and gentlemen, is the official understanding of what happened. All right. And I appreciate Danielle Struble in her hard work. She said she would provide me the information. It was after hours by this time. She said she would provide me the information first thing tomorrow. I appreciate that. That's not something you would normally get in a day. You should be able to get it in a day, but they can always take a couple days, 4 or 5 days, 6 days. I appreciate her saying she would get it to me tomorrow. I appreciate Danielle Struble. I'm not always a big John Brook fan, but Danielle Struble, I think, busts her ass and does the best she can do. I appreciate Danielle Struble. Okay. But I also received an email from Commissioner Stephen Brand. And ladies and gentlemen, here is the email that I received. Timing issues. I got to talk about Jerry Dishman here in a minute. I kind of got to give him a pat on the back for just a minute. Stephen Brand says, in response to my request, technically, I love that. Technically, John Coutinho is still the executive director because it has to go to the commissioners meeting on Monday to consider the recommendations from the EMA board. Therefore, John is still employed and still being paid. Does that make sense? If you recall, the commissioners took all of these positions off of an annual appointment last year and made them and their performance subject to the handbook. Okay, that's cool. So, reading between the lines on Stephen Brand's response, I will now put it in my own words. That was Brand's words. Here are my words. John Coutinho is currently employed still. He's on paid time off, and he will remain on paid time off until Monday at 9 a.m. At some point when the meeting starts on Monday, they will more than likely take a vote, and they will take under consideration the recommendations from the EMA board, which I currently do not have, but it's safe to say that the EMA board has said that they want him gone. I did hear from a source that was the recommendation. I don't have that in front of me, but a source, and I do trust the source, probably about 70-30. They did say that the EMA board said that he needs to be gone. So they will take that under consideration on Monday, and they'll vote that out. Now, oh boy here just said, isn't this, Joe Tompkins said, isn't this what a special meeting is for? Yeah. Here's the thing. It's Wednesday. So if they called a special meeting, well, it was Wednesday. It was like 4:00. So if they called a special meeting, it would have to actually be on Friday after 4. Okay. So at that point, why don't you just go ahead and do it Monday? I mean, he's not going to be paid he's not getting paid now. He's not going to be paid for Saturday or Sunday. So he's only getting paid, Thursday, Friday is what it is. Yeah, there's not enough notice. So they might as well go ahead and do it Monday and be done with it. I will tell you that I fully look for him to be terminated on Monday. That will be the end of his reign as the EMA director. He's had a pretty long run. I will also tell you this. Me too, timing issues. I really, after the last couple of answers from Brand, I was actually shocked at this answer, and I can give him a pat on the back for that. I appreciate his answer. I have also heard this from sources within the Indiana State Police that an arrest for John Coutinho is coming basically any day. Like, he could be arrested at any time. He is going to be arrested, and he is going to be charged in connection with what has occurred. And you can take that to the bank. We don't have that yet. That's not happened yet. I'm not telling tales out of school because I think everybody knows it. I think he knows it. I've heard he's been telling people that he's going to be arrested. And so it's not something that he's delirious about. I think delusional about. I think he does know it's coming. So, I don't know. And look, I don't know what was going on with them. I hope they get some help. This doesn't have to be the end of their story, but they need punishment and they need to seek forgiveness, and that's that. So I will keep you guys posted. The moment that he's arrested, I will let you guys know, and I will I will continue doing as I'm doing and letting you guys know we've pretty much been on every aspect of this story from the word go ahead of literally anybody else. For the record, this is Meagan Coutinho. You know, she looks like a bad AI picture. This looks like a bad AI picture. She looks very, there's like an uncanny valley here. She doesn't look real. It's very, very scary. And here is John Coutinho. And he kind of doesn't look real either. So very, very strange. I don't know what the deal is with those. I had the real mugshots from the jail. And funny enough, you know, I want to say this before we go on to the breaking news. This is where folks need to come in. If you're ready, we're getting ready to let you hear the story about the tragic situation and read the special prosecutor report. So that's going to be important. But I want to say this beforehand. And I've talked about this a lot of times in the past, and so I don't talk about it a whole lot now because I've done my life with it. I've done what I need to do. But, you know, I'm getting a lot of people that are shitting on me about posting about this Meagan Coutinho and John Coutinho stuff. And, you know, I've got somebody that messaged me that commented earlier on some post I made and said something like, you know, oh, thank God you're here to keep track of all of this. And, you know, that you've really got everything in check with this. And thank God that, you know, the city can sleep safe. And, you know, I can tell that was a smart ass remark. You know, it is what it is. But, you know, I think it's funny. Then they post and say, well, why haven't you posted your mugshot? And my answer to that is, what mugshot would you be referring to? What mugshot are you referring to? Because I'm sure that they're not referring to what I'm referring to. And for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I only have one mugshot that I have ever had taken in my entire life. I have only been in jail one time. And the mugshot that I had taken and the jail that I was in was the Randolph County Jail when I was arrested for speaking in a meeting doing what I do now. That is the only time in my life that I have ever been arrested, I've ever been fingerprinted, and I've ever had a mugshot taken. And I, myself, post that mugshot frequently. I wear that as a badge of honor. I see it as a I absolutely love it. I see it as a badge of courage. It's a thing that I always said that if I ran for election again in Winchester, that I would use it for my campaign pictures and all of that. And so I don't see that as a negative thing in any way. And matter of fact, here I was trying to find it, but I'm having a hard time locating. I can't believe how long ago that has actually been. Now it's shocking how long ago that actually occurred. Oh, yeah, right here. Right here it is for everybody to see. There's my mugshot. November 27th, my brother's birthday. November 27th, 2017, Christopher Bilbrey, Winchester, Indiana, disorderly conduct. And it was for me speaking in a meeting. Matter of fact, if you want to know, I said this is what got me arrested. You're out of order. This whole place is out of order. This is a joke. You're out of order. This whole place is out of order. This is a joke. You're out of order. This whole place is out of order. This is a joke. That's actually the words that I said in the meeting before they slammed me into a wall. So that's the case. What I think these people were probably referring to is the Walmart bullshit. And I'm just going to say this. I've never been arrested for anything other than disorderly conduct in my life. I have never been arrested for anything. The situation in Walmart, you know what? I've spoke about it multiple times. I'm not going to do it here. I have paid my penance for that. I have asked for forgiveness, and I've done what I've needed to do. And I've talked about it many times. No one holds power over me with that. Attempting to do so, bring it up and talk to me about it, and I will laugh. You know what I did? I did what I needed to do. I sucked up. I explained the situation, and some people want to see that as an excuse. It's not an excuse. It was me explaining the dumb shit that happened, why it happened, how it happened, and I've explained that. The video's out there. You can go watch it. I've talked about it a bazillion times. I've taken all power away from it. And in my opinion, that's what Meagan Coutinho needs to do. That's what John Coutinho needs to do. They need to do that, live a life, and move on. And, they need to become a success story as yours truly. And one of these days, people might not be able to hold this over their heads. Think about all these guys that used to run out the cocaine cowboys and all of this. They used to do all these, illegal crimes. And then 20 years later, they're doing shows on Netflix and they're laughing about it. And they've made a time. Maybe one day the Coutinhos can look back and laugh on this. It's going to be a while. They need to do what the hell they need to do. But don't be pointing fingers at me because you're in the spotlight now. It's your own shit. You know what I mean? How was the food? You know what? I had to about fight those people in jail to get them to take my mugshot. They about didn't want to take. I said, I'm not leaving here until you take my mugshot. Just FYI. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going on to the third part of the story now. And just really quickly, before we get there, I am going to take one last break. Sit tight. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And all right, we are going to now move on to the serious part of the show. It's all been serious. I was sent this right before the show started, so I have not had a chance to read through this. I'm going to be reading through this in real time with you guys right here, right tonight, right now. So it'll be what it'll be. And hopefully we will have some clarity at the end of this. Okay. Just briefly. I want to say that, viewer discretion advised, be advised that we are talking about a horrible tragedy, the tragedy that we were talking about last night. This is a situation where a father had left his 10-year-old daughter in a car. The daughter had some kind of situation that made her special needs. She was not mobile, could not move, could not get herself out, and could not speak. And so that's a horrible, horrible situation. So that's what this is. So this is the special prosecutor's report. And, yeah, I'm telling you, hey, see timing issues. And I get it. Some people probably don't, want to hear about this. And I completely understand that. The reason we are talking about this and the reason I feel like it's important is we need to have some clarity to what's going on here. Okay, so this is State of Indiana, Delaware County Circuit Court 2, cause number 18 CO2 2601 MC 72. And this is in reference petition for appointment of special prosecutor. Report to the court of the special prosecutors. It's 27 pages. Comes now, Christopher Gall and James Luttrell, senior prosecutors, having been appointed as special prosecutors in this cause and having completed a review of the criminal investigation in this matter, now inform the court of the following. Delaware County Prosecutor Eric Hoffman filed a petition for appointment of special prosecutor in this matter on January 13th, 2026. Judge Andrew J. Ramirez of the... and so people might be saying, well, wait a minute. Why did he file why did it take so long? If this happened in August of 2025, why did prosecutor Hoffman only request this in January of this year? Because, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a situation like this, when you have a situation that is like a murder, a big investigation, a major sex crime, a major drug investigation, an armed robbery, a situation like this, and you have an investigation, sometimes it goes on weeks, months, maybe years, okay? And the prosecutor's office will get involved if or when search warrants are needed or if they need to bounce things off. But a lot of the time, the police are doing the work, and the prosecutor's office does not get involved until the case is submitted. Once the case is submitted, then the prosecutor's office is involved. And once the case is submitted, then the prosecutor's office makes the determination, to recuse himself. And right here, straight on the bat, whether you like Eric or you don't like Eric, Eric made the right call to recuse himself, period. It would not have been an okay situation for the sheriff's department to investigate this case, and it would not be an okay situation for the Delaware County Prosecutor's Office to attempt to prosecute the case or to determine if charges should be filed. A special prosecutor or prosecutors were warranted. Okay, so that happened on January 13th, 2026.
So basically, they wrapped up the investigation part of things, and it goes to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor's like, okay, we need to send this to somebody else. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So basically, when they wrapped up the investigation, that's when they let him go back to work.
Well, yeah, that's basically what happened. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what happened here.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. So,
Yep. Nope. That's, and I would say what the sheriff's department did, and I don't have proof of this, but I would say that they said, since the state police wrapped up their investigation and an arrest was not made, they allowed the deputy to go back to work. And however awful it is, I'm going to say something that a lot of people don't like. In America, you are innocent until proven guilty, even when it is a crime that you clearly have confessed. I'm going to tell you, for example, Josh Kimbrell. Josh Kimbrell molested his children. He, of his own accord, after getting caught by his wife, walked into the police and he turned himself in. They were not looking for him. The school didn't turn him in. The kids didn't report him. Josh walked in and said, I want to report that I've been molesting my children. He confessed all the way. He sat in jail until his trial and everything happened. That period, Josh is still innocent until proven guilty. Even though we know he did it, that's the way America works. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the way it is. And that's, if you're on the chopping block, that's how you want it to work. Okay? So, here's the deal. People who say, if this were me or you, we would be arrested and or charged. So the arrest might happen, but to me, an arrest is not what matters. Being charged and prosecuted is what matters. People can be arrested and that not mean anything. You can never be charged. No, nobody wants to be arrested, but it's the charging that matters. And you got to look in Indiana. Indiana is very 50-50 on sometimes these cases get charged and sometimes they don't. And I'm not making any excuse for anybody. I'm just saying you have to look at how other cases like this have happened in Indiana. And I did, and I'm still looking into the Daleville situation. The Daleville situation was a little bit different than this situation. We will talk about that another night, but I want to get through this here, okay? Or we'll never get through it. Judge Andrew Ramirez of Delaware County Circuit Court 2 granted the petition and appointed special senior prosecutors Kristopher Gall and James Luttrell as special prosecutors by the court order appointing senior prosecutor on January 21st, 2026. And yes, Admiral Eric, he was on paid leave from August 15th, 2025 until sometime in January of this year, and I would assume it'd be around January 13th when they turned the case over, when the state police wrapped up. Now, he's been back at work from January until now, and that's what I've had issue with. I think he should have still been on paid leave. That's just my thought. Okay, but going on here. All right. Let's see here. James Luttrell filed his acceptance. Kristopher Gall filed his acceptance and affidavit for designation as senior prosecutor and appearance on February 6, 2026. Luttrell filed his appearance on February 25th. The special prosecutors hereby report to the court that the investigation into this matter is now complete, and the result of said investigation have been reviewed by the special prosecutors. Indiana Code 333910-2F further requires, if the target of an investigation by the special prosecutor is a public servant, as defined in Indiana Code 3532-522261, the court shall order the special prosecutor to file a report of the investigation with the court at the conclusion of the investigation. A report filed under this subsection is a public record under 514.3. A public servant means a person who is authorized to perform an official function and is paid by a government entity. The target of this investigation was employed as a deputy with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office at the time of this event at issue. The special prosecutors have determined that the target of the investigation was a public servant within the meaning of the Indiana Code. Thus, the special prosecutors have prepared this report to the court of the special prosecutors as required by Indiana Code to be filed as a public record. The special prosecutors have included sufficient details in the report to allow the public to be generally informed as to the nature and results of the investigation. Preliminary facts. Based on a review of the evidence collected in the investigation, the special prosecutors report on the following preliminary facts. The description is intended as a summary of the evidence and not as a complete record of the investigation. On August 14th, 2026, at approximately 6:44 p.m., Nathan Coffey called 911 to report that his daughter had been left accidentally in his truck and that he later found her dead and then called 911 immediately. A Delaware County Sheriff's deputy and a Liberty Township fireman responded by approximately 6:50, so just 6 minutes later. At approximately 7:42 p.m., the Indiana State Police were contacted. So, I don't know if, I forget what his name is, Wagner. I don't know if Dave Wagner's here, but Dave Wagner had asked me earlier when the state police was called. The state police were contacted by the Delaware County Sheriff's Office and requested to assist with the independent investigation since Nathan Coffey, here after referred to as Coffey, was a Delaware County Sheriff's deputy. So Richard Clay, the master trooper detective, was assigned to conduct the investigation. And they were called literally less than an hour after the initial 911 call. So a couple people have asked that, and I want to make sure that this is what's happening here. Okay. The child, date of birth, July 23, 2015, suffered from Rett syndrome. There we go. We now know the syndrome. Rett syndrome, which severely limited her cognitive and physical abilities. She could not speak, was unsteady in her walk, had little to no dexterity in her hands, and received most of her nutrition through a feeding tube. More information regarding the child's special needs will be discussed below. Detective Clay from the Indiana State Police and Detective Sergeant Scott Jarvis arrived to find the scene cordoned off and secured by Delaware County Sheriff's personnel, with other law enforcement and fire department members also present. Initial information provided by the Sheriff's Department personnel and the coroner indicated that Coffey had driven his personal vehicle to pick up his 10-year-old daughter from school around 2:30 p.m., then transported her home. Upon arriving at the residence, Coffey went into the house and took a nap for several hours, apparently forgetting that the child was still in the pickup truck. Several hours later, Coffey went out to the vehicle and found the child deceased. The child was disabled and required special needs that may have contributed to her not getting out of the vehicle. Coffey was not on duty with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office at the time of these events occurred. And people are like, well, that doesn't matter. What does it matter? That doesn't matter. That's something that the prosecutors have to say, and it's something that does matter. People are going to look at this. They have to look, okay? Okay. Moving on here. Coffey was cooperative with the investigation and provided consent to search the vehicle and consent to blood draw. Okay, so right there, he provided consent for a blood draw. Got to keep that in mind because we've had a lot of people asking, well, did he do a blood draw? Did he not do a blood draw? Now we'll have to find out when he did that, but we're just going to say that he did that at the time. Detective Clay transported Coffey to the hospital to obtain the blood draw. Coffey then consented to give a recorded statement and consented to a search of his residence. Deputy Nathan Coffey interview. Coffey told Detective Clay that he had been a road deputy with Delaware County Sheriff's Office for over 2 years. Prior to that, he was an officer with the Muncie Police Department for about 4.5 years. He was also in the active reserves with the Marine Corps. A typical shift would require him to work nights from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. with rotating days off. For example, 1 week he worked Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the next week he worked Wednesday, Thursday. However, he was currently on an adjusted schedule due to a recent participation in field training officer training in Marion, Indiana. The last week and a half had not been a typical routine schedule for him. Coffey denied taking any narcotics or alcohol. And it is important because of what they said. He has already done the blood draw at this point. But we will get those reports from ISP, and we will know the times of those when we get those reports. And we should have those reports within 89 days, okay? Because it was 90 yesterday. The last week and a half had not been a typical week. Coffey said that his day got up at 6:30 and between 6:30 and 7 to take his daughter to the Monroe Central Elementary. He also had a 2-year-old daughter who stayed at home and a stepdaughter who rode the bus to school. The older children started school on August 6th or 7th, so they had been in school for a couple of weeks. After dropping off the daughter at school, Coffey went home and got the rest of the family up around 9 a.m. They then spent time together at the reservoir until approximately 1 p.m. There was a bass fishing tournament coming up on the weekend, so they went out on the boat to prepare. After leaving the reservoir, they picked up lunch at a fast food restaurant and returned home. Coffey left home at approximately 2 p.m. to pick up his daughter from school. The daughter was released from school around 2:30. After picking her up from school, Coffey drove home. He could not recall what happened between the time he pulled into the driveway and when he walked in the door. He remembered that his 2-year-old daughter was throwing a fit, not going to sleep, and that he became preoccupied with quietening her down. He laid down in the bed to get the 2-year-old to sleep, and he fell asleep with the 2-year-old. Coffey became emotional during this part of the interview. Dave Clay confirmed that the daughter was still in the truck at this time. Coffey explained that due to the daughter's special needs, she was typically drained at the end of the school day and took a nap when she got home. She had a cubby bed, and they zipped her into. Coffee stated that he woke up around 6 p.m. when his stepdaughter jumped on him. He had a conversation with his wife, Courtney, about practice shooting her archery bow. All right, so this is going to answer a lot of questions. There were other children home at the time, and his wife was home at the time. Well, that's pretty weird for me here at this point. I'm just going to be really honest. It's really odd. So until this point, and that's why these things are very important, because until this point, I have been under the assumption that he came home alone and he had the two children. Now hearing that we've got a house full of people, including another adult. All right, let's go on. Coffee stated that he woke up around 6 p.m. when his stepdaughter jumped on him, had a conversation with his wife about practice shooting her archery bow. They had just had her compound bow fixed, and the bow was in the truck. At that time, Coffee assumed he had put Aubrey, into bed and thought she was asleep in her room and did not recall what happened before he went to sleep. He went out to the truck to get the bow so that he could practice shoot. He opened the passenger side door, and he was not sure if it was the front or back passenger, and saw her leg. Coffee again got emotional in the interview. Detective Clay asked how far the drive home from the school. Deputy Coffee said that the drive was about 10 or 15 minutes. Coffee described that he was on the passenger side of the truck when he saw her leg and then ran around to the driver's side. He then tried to lift her up, hoping that she was asleep, but he immediately noticed that her body was hard and that rigor had set in. And I want to be very clear here. And this is not fun, but under these conditions, body, her size, age, with these same conditions with the heat, a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't make sense. You know, rigor takes a lot longer. A body like that could go into rigor in as few as 2 hours. Okay, as few as 2 hours. So I want to be very clear there. And he's saying that he picked her up at 2:30, got home 10 or 15 minutes later. It's 2:45, 2:50, and that he didn't go back out there until 6 o'clock. That's more than enough time for rigor to set in. I just want to be clear there. That's just factual information. So, you know, we got to be factual here. Okay. All right. He knew that she was gone. He then ran into the house and told his wife that she was dead. His wife asked if he could resuscitate her, and he replied she was gone. He tried to call 911, but initially the call would not go through. He tried calling 3 times within 2 minutes of finding the daughter, and he stated the first two individuals who arrived at his home were Sergeant Maxwell from the Sheriff's Department and Fire Chief from Selma, Indiana. He was not sure who showed up first. He was not sure if they tried any medical intervention because he stood at the front of the truck so that he was out of the way. He remained standing at the front of the truck until ISP arrived. His wife was on the phone with his brother. Coffee confirmed that the child was behind the driver's seat in the back seat. He stated that he had backed into the driveway, which was his normal practice. He then usually opened the back door to get her out of the truck, but did not know why he didn't do it on this occasion. He just knew that he walked into the house and heard his younger daughter in the bedroom throwing a fit. Coffee said he didn't know why he failed to remember to open the door to get the daughter out. He explained that he always got her out and walked her into the house and down the hall to her bedroom, took off her shoes and put her on the bed. He again became emotional at this point in the interview. Coffee explained that the daughter had Rett syndrome, so that she was nonverbal and didn't respond to the typical cues that a normal person would have. The daughter was unable to engage in any conversation. However, every once in a while, the daughter would make a noise like an autistic person would, as if she were trying to communicate. The daughter was self-contained and did not play with other kids or associate with them. Coffee stated that she walked choppy but did not have to be held up. Coffee stated that she was on seizure medication named clobazam and also took clonazepam along with another drool medication. The child received medical treatment for Rett syndrome from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Coffey explained further that the child had always been lightweight, but had lost an additional 10 pounds over the summer. He started taking his daughter to the Open Door Health Center in Delaware County to develop a weight check plan, and that she had recently gained 5 pounds. They fed the child 4 Pediasure brand shakes daily through a feeding G tube. The child also ate solid foods, however, did not like the thin viscosity of water. Coffey stated the child was last at her mother's house the previous weekend, August 8th and 10th, 2025. He believed that he had picked up the child from her mother on Sunday when he returned from his weekend duty with the Marine Corps Reserve. Coffey volunteered that the neighbor across the street had a Ring doorbell camera that may have captured footage of the events, but he was not sure if the house to the west had cameras or not. Interview of Courtney Coffey. Detective Jarvis conducted a recorded interview with Nathan Coffey's wife, Courtney. Courtney confirmed that she and Nathan were married on March of 2025. They had one child together, and they had a child and she also had a child from a previous marriage, 11-year-old. All 3 children had spent the previous night at the residence. Courtney related that this morning her child had gone to school on the bus at approximately 7:30. The baby was too young for school and stayed home, and Nathan took his child to school sometime around 7:15 or 7:30. Courtney confirmed that his child went to special needs classes at Monroe Central Elementary, and she suffered from Rett syndrome, a condition that caused her to be nonverbal. The child could walk, feed herself, and some finger foods. However, the child also had to be fed via a feeding tube multiple times each day. Later that morning, Courtney, Nathan, and her child, one of the childs, took their fishing boat to Prairie Creek Reservoir of the baby to scout the water for an upcoming fishing tournament that Nathan was going to participate in. They got to the reservoir around 11 a.m., stayed until approximately 1. Courtney stated they did not consume any alcohol or drugs. After leaving the lake, they went to Muncie and bought food at Wendy's to bring home for lunch. After lunch, she and Nathan lay in bed watching TikTok videos while the baby played. The other child rode the bus home from school, and the kid and Courtney fell asleep, the baby. Courtney woke up to Nathan getting back into bed to take a nap. Courtney then fell back asleep right away. There was no conversation at that time. Courtney reported that Nathan typically worked the night shift from 6 to 6 a.m. Some days Nathan napped in the afternoon. Nathan and Courtney took turns picking up his child from school. That day, Courtney had the alarm set for 5 p.m. She got up around that time with LC and made a bottle for the child and went into her other daughter's room with the baby. After speaking to her older child, they all went back into Courtney and Nathan's bedroom together to wake Nathan up. After Nathan woke up, he asked Courtney about shooting her archery bow, and she agreed that she would like to do some target shooting. At that point, Nathan went out to his truck to retrieve her bow from the back of the truck. Nathan quickly returned inside the residence and had a shocked look on his face and stated that the child was dead. Courtney stated that she was in disbelief at this time. Nathan got on his phone and called 911 or dispatch. She then went outside to the truck in the driveway and saw the child deceased in the back seat behind the driver's seat inside the back of the black truck. In response to questions, Courtney stated that it was normal for the child to fall asleep on the way home from school. Courtney stated that after viewing her in the back of the truck, she was in shock and went back inside the house. Nathan was still on the phone. Nathan walked back and out and stood by the truck until first responders arrived. She heard Nathan tell one of the officers, "I'm sorry, I messed up. I forgot her in the truck." She then went back in the house to keep the children inside the house. Courtney stated that Nathan had never forgotten any of the children in a vehicle before. The specific reason he went out to the truck was to get the bow and not because he had remembered that she was in the truck. The previous day, they had been at an archery store to get her bow ready for the upcoming deer season. She got a different bow. She was going to try it out, and she had left the bow in the truck the previous night. Courtney was then asked if she had ever heard Nathan previously say anything about leaving the child in the truck or anything similar. She stated that she had not. Courtney believed that Nathan did not realize that the child was in the truck until he saw her when he went to go get the bow. In response to further questioning, Courtney stated that typically when the child came home from school, she was put in her room in her safe spot where she typically took a 2-hour nap each day. After the nap, they would wake the child and feed her through the feeding tube. When Courtney woke up today, she just assumed that the child was in her room taking a nap. Scene investigation. The Indiana State Police crime scene investigator, Sergeant Garcia, took digital photographs of the scene in both the child and Nathan Coffey. Garcia also took measurements, made a sketch, and collected samples for potential DNA analysis. Garcia and Delaware County elected coroner Gavin Green then removed the child from the truck and placed her into a body bag. At that time, Garcia observed the G-tube and medical artifacts affixed to the child's stomach area. Garcia photographed the inside and the contents of the vehicle. Garcia and Jarvis then visually inspected the inside of the residence and did not view anything of evidentiary value, nor observe any indications of a neglectful environment. After Deputy Coffey gave consent to search the residence, Jarvis and Garcia searched the residence looking for any signs of poor living conditions of the children. There were no signs inside the house of poor living conditions, and each room was photographed. Various medications that were prescribed to the child were also photographed. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Yeah, right, Kate. I see what you said there. Okay, Detective Jarvis attempted to locate any doorbell cameras from across the street and was able to view video of first responders arriving. However, there was no video showing the opposite driveway earlier in the afternoon, likely because the camera was not triggered by events at that distance. Nathan Coffey's second interview. On August 15th, Detective Clay met with Department of Child Services personnel regarding the investigation and contacted Nathan Coffey to request another meeting to discuss additional follow-up questions. Coffey voluntarily agreed to another interview. Detective Clay and DCS case manager Britton Skinner then visited Deputy Coffey's residence. And before anybody says, I don't know Britton Skinner. Don't know if that's in any way connected to Tony Skinner. Probably something that we're going to have to ask just so people don't go crazy. I don't know if there's any connection there. I have no idea. We'll have to find that out. But to my knowledge, it's no relation. That's not a common name, but it is kind of a common name in the Muncie area in different areas. So we'll just have to find out. I don't know. Okay. Britton Skinner then visited Deputy Coffey's residence for Detective Clay to ask follow-up questions and for DCS to conduct an initial assessment. Courtney Coffey was also present during the recorded interview. Coffey clarified that he had custody of the child and his ex-wife, Lauren Coffey, had full physical custody of their other two children, a 12-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. Coffey stated that visitation was every other weekend and with the parents, but siblings were together every weekend. During the summer, visitation was a week at a time with all three children. The only medical intervention that the child had received recently were the weekly weigh-ins on Wednesday at Open Door. Coffey then described that the child had lost weight over the summer and that there was a feeding team appointment in Cincinnati that was scheduled for next Friday, which would have been August the 22nd, 2025. Clay specifically asked about the child's ability to open doors. Coffey stated that he didn't think Aubrey had the ability to open the door. I'm going to tell you something that I don't like. I don't like that they continue to refer to him as Deputy Coffey. I just don't like that. I don't like that fact. I think that puts, whether you like it or not, it puts a connotation in your mind, in their mind. And I don't think, they've clearly laid out the fact that he was not on duty when this happened. So this is not, there's no reason why they cannot refer to him simply as Coffey. The constant deputy is something that I wouldn't have done. I don't think that should be in here. All right, moving on. Coffee stated that he didn't think the child had the ability to open the door. The last thing Coffee remembered from the time he got home with the child was backing into the driveway, walking inside and hearing the 2-year-old was jumping around yelling while Courtney was in and out of sleep. He laid down with the 2-year-old to get her to take a nap, and they fell asleep together. Coffee said Courtney typically picked his child up from school, and especially did so last week while Coffee was in training. Coffee described that the child would typically fall asleep after school. Again, he stated that he did not remember a lot from the ride home that day. Coffee stated that the child did often fall asleep in cars and was quiet. Well, of course. Detective Clay asked Coffee if he had seen the child asleep in the car and just decided to leave her to sleep. Coffee insisted that he did not see her asleep, and he did not decide to just leave her in the truck to continue sleeping. Detective Clay then asked Coffee if there was something on his mind at the time when he picked up the child and drove home. Coffee explained that he would give Detective Clay a list of things that he'd experienced recently, but added none of them were excuses for what had occurred. Coffee stated that both of his parents had died in January, that the Marine Corps was kicking him and others out due of their unit, so he was in the middle of a lateral move that may have not get approved. He had just been in training for the sheriff's department. He was supposed to go to bomb training in Alabama on Sunday, so he was trying to spend time with his family between the trainings away from home. He had to go to Indianapolis to get extra training with the Marine Corps on Tuesday to make up for the unit change. Coffee stated that he had a lot of things on his mind. However, he reiterated that none of these things were an excuse, just that there was a lot going on. For some reason yesterday, I screwed up. Information from the school. Detective Clay next interviewed Kelly Peden, the teacher for the child at Monroe Central High School. Peden explained that the child was in an especially good mood during school on the 14th. Peden provided Clay with a phone video of the child laughing from around 11:30 a.m. that day, along with another video from a few days earlier. Peden stated that the child seemed very happy, laughing and giggling most of the day on August 14th, 2025. Peden explained that the special needs class was released earlier than other students in order to avoid issues with overstimulation. Peden explained that the child had very little dexterity due to her illness and that the child was unable to open doors or grasp things with her hands. Most of the time, the child's hands were in fists in front of her face. Peden demonstrated with one hand in a fist and the other hand cupping the fist, with both hands held in front of the face around chin height. Peden explained that the child's hands constantly moved and shook. Peden had to feed the child because when she did pick up her finger foods, she shook too much to feed herself. Peden also stated the child walked a lot but would close her eyes when she walked so that she would bump into things and fall. Monroe Central Elementary School also provided videos that were recorded on the security camera. The video recorded on August 13th shows Nathan Coffey arrive at school and pick the child up at approximately 11 a.m. The video from August 14th shows school staff person bringing the child out to where Coffey was waiting near the school entrance. The staff person spoke to Coffey briefly. Coffey then put his arm around the child and they walked out together towards the parking lot at 2:32 p.m. Forensic interview of the other children. Ah, God. Clay reviewed the forensic interview of Coffey's other children by his previous marriage to Lauren Coffey. Both children were Lauren Coffey's house at the time of the incident and thus did not have significant relevant information to provide the investigation. Detective Clay attended a forensic interview of MM, Courtney's daughter, and Nathan Coffey's stepdaughter. MM described the child's bedroom and discussed how her stepdad had accidentally left the child in the car. MM became emotional and described that her stepdad had gone outside to get her mother's bow out of the vehicle and discovered that he had accidentally left Aubrey in the truck. She explained that her stepdad came back inside freaking out and crying, and he called 911. She described the EMS and Sheriff's Department response. She mentioned that her mother told her not to look outside or let her little sister look outside. She described that later that night she went to her grandmother's house. Earlier that day, she went to school, got home, and did homework. She also said her little sister, Elsie, had taken a nap with her mother. MM did her homework, and they came out of their bedroom around 4:30 or 5 p.m. Her stepdad asked her mom if she wanted to shoot her bow, and she stated that he would go to the truck and get it. That is when her stepdad found the child. He came back inside and told them that the child had passed. MM described her stepdad's truck. Body camera. Detective Clay obtained video footage from the body cameras of Delaware County Sheriff's officers who initially responded to the scene. The body camera video showed that Sergeant Maxwell appeared to have arrived first at approximately 6:50. Coffee met him in the driveway in front of the truck. Liberty Township Fire was also at the scene and approached the child who was still in the vehicle. Sergeant Maxwell approached the driver's side back passenger door. It was already open and captured a video of the child laying on the back seat. He then walked to the front of the vehicle where Coffee was standing. As Maxwell approached, Coffee placed his hands behind his back. Sergeant Maxwell told him, "Come here." They walked around to the front of the truck. Liberty Township Fire responder asked how long she had been there, and Coffee responded, since he picked her up from school. Coffee was clearly emotional and told Sergeant Maxwell, "I know you have to take me." Sergeant Maxwell stated, "We're not going to do that yet." Coffee stated, "I know, but I messed up." Sergeant Maxwell stated, "We're not going to do that yet." Coffee stated, "I know, but I messed up." Sergeant Maxwell returned to his vehicle and began making notifications. He then returned to the truck and spoke to Liberty Township Fire, who confirmed at 6:53 that she was deceased. Maxwell then began a crime scene log. Maxwell explained to Deputy Coffee that he was not going to ask him any questions, but investigations were coming, and they would be the ones to talk to him. On Maxwell's body cam, a first responder with Liberty Township Fire can be heard stating that when he arrived, Coffee told him that she was dead. First responder recounted now that he had walked over and got in the truck, checked for a pulse, found no pulse, and noticed that rigor had set in on her arms, and then he backed out of the vehicle. Body camera video from other officers showed similar footage. 911 call recording. Clay obtained the recording of the 911 call. In response to the 911 operator, Nathan Coffee gave his address. The 911 operator asked, "What's going on?" Coffee responded, "My daughter's dead." 911 operator asked if she was ill. Actually, they said, "Is he ill?" Coffee responded, "No, I left her in the truck." 911 operator asked, "On purpose?" Coffee responded, "No, I did not. I brought her home from school, and I forgot about her. I fell asleep." 911 operator asked, "Do you want to try to get her out and do some CPR?" Coffee responded, "She is hard. She has rigor already. I messed up." 911 operator stated, "You accidentally left her in the truck?" Coffee responded, "Yes." He then gave his name and personal information. 911 operator asked, "Is she still in the vehicle?" Coffee answered, "Yeah, I haven't moved her." Weather information. Detective Clay conducted an online research to determine the temperature for August 14th, 2025 from two different websites. Both websites indicated the high temperature of 85 degrees on August 14th, 2025 that coincided with the estimated range of that time. The child was inside the vehicle. Detective Clay also consulted a website, Good Calculators, and calculated the temperature inside the parked vehicle based on the ambient temperature of 85 degrees. According to this website, the temperature inside the vehicle would have been 132 degrees at an elapsed time of 3 hours. This calculator was based on research conducted by Stanford University School of Medicine, toxicology, autopsy reports, and medical records. Now, this is going to be very important to me. This is going to be very, very important to me. Okay, give me a second here. And I apologize, just one second here, folks. Kate had to step away for having some things going on at home, so I'm not going to be looking at the comments. I'm gonna star this one right here. I'm going to star this. I'm going to star this one right here. The weight loss issues could be constructed potentially as neglect leading up to this. I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to star this, and then from anything from here forward, I will go back and look on just so we can hit anything. If you have any questions or thoughts or concerns, put them in there, and I'll look at them at the end of this, okay? Toxicology, autopsy report, medical records. The toxicology report on the sample taken from Coffey's blood draw detected no drugs or alcohol, okay? So that's that. That's what we're hearing. No drugs, no alcohol. Okay. On Friday, August 15th, Clay and ISP CSI Sergeant Chris Martin attended the autopsy of the child. Martin documented the autopsy with photographs and collected various items of evidence. The autopsy of the child was performed by Dr. Julian Klaus, an amazing doctor and pathologist at IU Balmoral Hospital. The autopsy report was later issued and signed by Dr. Klaus on October 23rd, 2025. Dr. Klaus' findings led to the opinion that the cause of death was hyperthermia and the manner of death was accidental. Dr. Klaus made the following comment regarding the manner of death. Vehicular hyperthermia in children is best classified as accident unless there is evidence of willful neglect or blatant disregard for safety. Clay also obtained medical records and confirmed the diagnosis and expected symptoms of Rett syndrome. Potentially applicable statutes. Okay. Now, this is where they're going to apply law. We're going to see what fits or what doesn't as it pertains to what they've done. Neglect of a dependent, as this is what we went over the other night. Okay. Person having care of a dependent, whether assumed or voluntary because of a legal obligation, who knowingly or intentionally places the dependent in a situation that endangers the dependent's life or health. Okay. And we can see that they have highlighted or bolded out what they feel fits here. So they've bolded A1, but they didn't bold 2, 3, 4. And they bolded commits a neglect of dependent. However, the offense is a level 1 felony if committed under the subsection A1, A2, or A3. Okay, That's what they emphasis added. So they added that. Okay. Culpability. Person engages in conduct intentionally if, when he engages in the conduct, it is his conscious objective to do so. A person engages in conduct knowingly if, when he engages in the conduct, he is aware of a high probability that he is doing so. Relevant case law. Prior to 1976, the neglect of a dependent criminal statute did not contain a mens rea, mental culpability element. Having no legislative directive regarding the degree of mental culpability required, the Indiana Supreme Court defined the offense by an objective standard. Neglect is the want of reasonable care. That is the admission of such steps as reasonable parent would take, such as are usually taken in ordinary experiences of mankind. An objective standard for conduct is external, formulated, and reference to community values. A subjective standard, by contrast, refers to judgment or perception of the particular actor. However, in 1976, the legislature passed a new provision defining the mental culpability requirements of knowingly and intentionally. That same year, the legislature amended the neglect of a dependent statute by adding the mental elements of either knowingly or intentionally. In 1982 case of Ware v. State, directly addressed the question of whether the added culpability element of knowingly in the updated neglect of a dependent statute imposed the objective of or subjective standard. Ware held, in order to be convicted of knowingly neglecting a dependent under the Indiana Code, the accused must have been subjectively aware of a high probability that he placed the dependent in a dangerous situation. Our conclusion promotes uniformity. Our conclusion promotes uniformity, the obvious goal of a culpability definition statute without defeating the goal of the child neglect statute, to wit, protection of children, requiring proof of subjective knowledge in applying subsection A1 of the child neglect statute is hardly inconsistent with the legislative objective. Court of Appeals Second District opinion in Ware noted that its holding was at odds with the 1980 opinion of the First District of Smith v. State, and the only other case to address the required standard of mental culpability in the context of a child neglect statute. The Smith court rejected the subjective definition of the term knowingly and retained the objective standard as applied under the former statute. Ware explicitly differed from Smith on principles of statutory construction, and the Ware court thought that best represented legislative intent as indicated by the amended statute that added knowingly culpable requirements. Ware also noted that its holding comported that the interpretation of knowingly mental culpability, as stated in the Indiana Supreme Court in State versus Bridgewater, generally speaking, the term knowingly in criminal proceedings imports that the accused person knew what he was about and possessing such knowledge proceeded to commit the crime of which he is charged. Okay. Generally speaking, the term knowingly in criminal proceedings imports that the accused person knew what he was about, to do, and knew what he was about, and possessing such knowledge proceeded to commit the crime of which he is charged. The facts in Ware were that the mother charged with neglect of a dependent told her daughter on the way to the hospital not to mention the mother's boyfriend had raped the daughter and given the child gonorrhea. The mother then continued to leave the daughter alone in the apartment with the boyfriend several nights a week, thereby exposing the child to prolonged emotional distress and the danger of renewed attack. This was sufficient evidence to show that the mother had subjectively acted knowingly in her negligent conduct following the rape incident, even though the mother had not been present during the rape itself. In 1985, the Indiana Supreme Court in Armour v. State finally resolved the conflict of the Court of Appeals between the First District Smith decision. The words knowingly or intentionally as contained can scarcely have their usual application in a situation as here or in England, where the offense grows out of the non-performance of affirmative duty imposed by law of the care and protection of child. Totally circumstance, whether or not to requisite awareness was present, whether or not the action of the parent was reasonable. I don't think so. I don't think so, Stumblefoot. Okay, Second District Ware decision, clearly holding the subjective standard for knowingly applies in the context of neglect of a dependent. Defines knowingly as conduct in which an actor is aware of a high probability that he is so engaged. However, the Indiana Court of Appeals disagrees to the definition of knowingly in our child neglect statutes. One district applies an objective standard wherein the state needs only prove that the defendant caretaker was aware of the facts, which would alert reasonable caretaker under similar circumstances to take affirmative action to protect the child. Other districts correctly apply the subjective standard mandated by the culpability defining the statute. We now hold that the level of culpability required when child neglect statute requires knowing behavior is that level where accused must have been subjectively aware of a high probability that he placed the defendant in a dangerous situation. Okay. Caldwell v. State followed holding to convict a caretaker under the theory of neglect of a dependent. The state must show the caretaker was subjectively aware of a high probability that he or she placed the dependent in a dangerous situation. Also following where the Court of Appeals in Fout v. State overturned the conviction for neglect of a dependent where the state failed to prove the defendant had subjective knowledge of the danger to which he exposed her child. An adult caregiver left the child unattended and the child wandered off. The evidence showed the defendant was subjectively aware of the situation, and such knowledge then made a conscious choice to leave the child unattended. That was sufficient evidence to the defendant had acted with subjective knowledge that he had placed the child in a dangerous situation in order to commit the neglect of a dependent. The state may seek to prove the required element of a defendant's subjective knowledge through reasonable inference based on examination of the surrounding circumstance. Because knowledge, like intent, is a mental state of the actor, the trier of the fact must resort to reasonable inference based on the examination of the surrounding. Who pays out? What do you mean, Stumblefoot? You mean if an officer is killed in the line of duty? Is that what you're asking? If an officer is killed in the line of duty, does someone get paid? I mean, I'm sure the family would have life support or life insurance. It just depends. It really just depends. Available research concerning the phenomenon of children left in vehicles. Okay, this is going to be important to me because we've had a lot of people talking about how this applies here in Indiana, how this applies in Delaware County. So I'm interested in this. According to Kids in Car Safety and No Heat Strokes, two organizations focused on kids and car safety, on average, at least 38 children die in hot cars in the United States every year. It is estimated that 53% of these vehicular pediatric heat stroke deaths, the children was left unintentionally in a hot car by otherwise caring and responsible parents and caregivers. Dr. David Diamond, a neuroscientist at the University of South Florida, had studied the question, how can loving and attentive parents with no evidence of substance abuse or organic brain disorder have a catastrophic lapse of memory that places a child's welfare in jeopardy? Okay, this is going to be interesting. The answer, according to Dr. Diamond, has to do with the interaction between retrospective memory and prospective memory, and how often beneficially drivers slip into autopilot. Certain factors such as chronic stress, sleep deprivation, distractions, and multitasking contribute to this memory failure. See, this is something that I was thinking about. You know, that situation where you get in the car after a long day at work and you get in the car and you turn the radio on, or you turn the radio's not even on, and you're driving home. And because, see, here's the deal. It depends on how far you have to drive. Because I have worked in my life places where I have generally had to drive like 30, 40, 50 minutes to and from work. And I cannot tell you how many times that I would get in the car and be in the car for 2 or 3 minutes driving home, and I got home and I'm like, how the hell did I get here? I don't remember getting here. I didn't even look at the road. I don't know if I drove through stop signs. And you know, we've all experienced that happens. I mean, if you say you haven't experienced, I would think that you're probably lying, because that's a very common experience. And I'm just trying to think if like something like that happens in this situation where you're going through the situation of, you've lost your two parents in the last month. You're going and coming and doing a lot of training and missing your family and wanting to spend time with your family and being tired. I'm just trying to think, because here's the thing. I'm trying to think of a way in which this happens. A way in which, God forbid, something like this happens. Because to me, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I just don't. And I'm not, that is the normal person is going to say, I don't understand how you forget your kid in the car. That's not a crazy thought. Most of us are saying that. Okay. So driver slips into autopilot. Certain factors such as chronic stress, sleep deprivation, distractions, and multitasking contribute to this memory failure. Also, it is typical for parents who have forgotten children in cars to have stored as a real but false memory the belief that they removed the child from the car. You kind of come to when you have to shut off the car and get out. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Now, I'm trying to think. Let me think about that. Let's continue on here. We're almost done, folks. I know this has been long. We're almost done. The answer, according to Dr. Diamond, has nothing to do with the interactions between retrospective memory and perspective memory and how often beneficially drivers slip into autopilot. Okay, they create a false memory. They remove the child from the car. The report is not intended to offer a full explanation of this phenomenon, nor to prove that memory failure occurred in this instance or necessarily a legal defense. However, this information is offered to document that these tragic cases do occur. Coffey's description of what he did, leaving the child in the truck, and what he believed he had done, removed her from the truck and put her to bed, is consonant with a phenomenon that does occur and is repeated dozens of times per year by ostensibly caring and otherwise responsible parents. Research shows that the unintended leaving of a child in cars increased significantly with the advent of airbags and the necessity of the seating of small children in the rear seat. Organizations like Kids in Cars, No Heat Strokes, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recommend that caregivers transporting children in the car take practical steps to plant helpful clues and reminder in the vehicle of the child present, such as placing the child's toys or diaper bag in the front seat of the driver's cell phone or briefcase or purse next to the child in the rear seat. These recommendations underscore the broad understanding of the role memory failures play in the majority of child hot car deaths. It is important to consider the assertion by Dr. Diamond that research indicates that children that have been forgotten in cars by non-parental caretakers and mothers and fathers at all levels of socioeconomic status and education, including well-educated and highly responsible people, such as a physician, a teacher, a news reporter, a judge, a prosecutor, a pediatrician, a firefighter, a dentist, an administrator, a daycare owner, professors. Standards for charging decision. The Indiana Rules for Professional Conduct, Rule 3.8, special responsibilities of a prosecutor states as follows. The prosecutor in a criminal case shall refrain from prosecuting a charge that the prosecutor knows is not supported by probable cause. The comments for Rules 3.8 further state, a prosecutor has the responsibility of a minister of the justice and not simply that of an advocate. The responsibility carries with it a specific obligation to see that the defendant is accorded to procedural justice and that guilt is decided upon the basis of sufficient evidence. The American Bar Association Criminal Justice Standards for the prosecutor function includes the following provisions. Standard 3.4.3, minimum standard for filing and maintaining criminal charges. A prosecutor should seek to file criminal charges only if the prosecutor reasonably believes that the charges are supported by probable cause and that the admissible evidence will be sufficient to support the conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, and that the decision to charge is in the interest of justice. Discretion of filing, declining, maintaining, dismissing criminal charges. In order to fully implement the prosecutor's function and duties, including the obligation to enforce the law while exercising sound discretion, the prosecutor is not obligated to file or maintain criminal charges which the evidence might support. Among the factors which prosecutors may properly consider in exercising discretion to initiate, decline, or dismiss criminal charges, even though it meets the requirements of Standards 3.43, are the strength of the case, the prosecutor's doubt that the accused is in fact guilty, the extent or absence of the harm caused by the offense, the impact of the prosecution or non-prosecution of the public welfare, the background of the characteristics of the offender, including any voluntary restitution or efforts at rehabilitation, whether the authorized or likely punishment of a collateral consequence are disproportionate in relation to the particular offense or the offender, the views and motives of the victims or complainant, any improper conduct by law enforcement, unwarranted disparate treatment of similarly situated persons, potentially collateral impact of third parties, including witnesses or victims, cooperation of the offender in the apprehension of conviction of others, the possible influence of any cultural, ethnic, socioeconomic, or other important biases, the change in law or policy, the fair and efficient distribution of limited prosecutorial resources, the likelihood of prosecution by another jurisdiction, whether the public interest in the matter might be appropriately vindicated by available civil, regulatory, or administrative or private remedies, determination of the special prosecutor. Special prosecutors, having reviewed the official independent investigation conducted by Indiana State Police Detective Clay, have determined that the investigation into this matter is now complete and have made the following determinations. That the target of the investigation, Nathan Coffey, was a public servant within the meaning of Indiana Code In that time of the events at issue, he was authorized to perform an official function on behalf of and was paid by a governmental entity. Coffey was not on duty with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office at the time of these events. The special prosecutor is required to file a report of investigation to the court in conclusion of the investigation, which is public record, that the facts as documented in the official independent investigation by Detective Clay are not in dispute and have generally been established as uncontested. That the target of the investigation, Nathan Coffey, fully cooperated with the investigation, and in that he gave a voluntary statement in which he answered all questions, submitted to follow-up interviews, and consented to blood draw and consented to searches of his vehicle and home. Coffey's statements appear to be truthful in that they were corroborated by statements of other witnesses and were consistent with all other evidence collected in the course of the investigation. That based on the admission of Coffey as corroborated by the statements of other witnesses and evidence, special prosecutor determined the following facts. Coffey picked up his 10-year-old daughter from school, drove home, backed the truck into the driveway at approximately 2:50, walked into the house, became involved with attempting to calm down his 2-year-old daughter, who was throwing a fit and required his attention, laid down in bed with his wife and the child and fell asleep. Woke up at around 6 p.m., engaged in conversation with his wife about practice shooting her archery bow, walked out to the truck to retrieve the bow, opened the door on the passenger side of the vehicle, and was shocked to see the child in the back of the driver's side. Ran around the driver's side of the vehicle, opened the back door, and reached for the child, quickly perceived that she was dead and that rigor mortis had already set into her body. At this point, Coffey ran into the house, notified his wife, and immediately called 911 to report what happened. That the 911 recording contains the following statements made by Coffey. No, I left her in the truck. I brought her home from school and I forgot about her. I fell asleep. She's hard. She has rigor already. I messed up. In response to the 911 operating, you accidentally left her in the truck. Deputy Coffey responded, yes. Coffey is also visible on body camera video at the scene stating, I messed up. That statement of Courtney Coffey in the forensic interview of Coffey's stepdaughter were both consistent with Coffey's own statement. that the child suffered from Rett syndrome, a medical condition which severely impaired her ability to function in a normal manner, caused to her to be nonverbal and largely unable to communicate, impaired her physical ability to walk and use her hands to grasp and hold objects, and required her to be fed through a feeding tube. That due to the child's physical impairment, it would have been extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the child to independently open the door and exit the vehicle. In addition, Nathan Coffey stated that his belief that the child would not have been able to open the door. Coffey was in a position of parental responsibility and had a duty of care towards the child as a dependent. That the child was a uniquely vulnerable person due to her severe disability and significant special needs. That there is no evidence that Nathan Coffey left the child in the vehicle on purpose, manner with intent to cause harm. That the elements for the criminal offense of neglect and dependent are that a person having a caretaker or dependent or of a dependent, whether assumed, voluntary, or because of legal obligation, who knowingly or intentionally places the dependent in a situation that endangers the dependent's life or health, commits a neglect of the dependent. However, the offense is a level 3 felony. A level 1 felony if committed by a person at least 18 years of age and results in death of a dependent who is less than 14 years of age, or in the death of a dependent who has a mental or physical disability. That the criminal offense of neglect of a dependent requires that the state prove that the elements that the defendant acted knowingly, such when engaged in the conduct of was aware of a high probability that he is doing so. That a reasonable person charged with the duty of care of a special needs dependent, such as this child, should have objectively remembered that the child was still in the vehicle and acted to prevent harm. That the applicable standard of culpability for neglect of a dependent requires not just that the state prove a reasonable person's standard of knowing culpability, but that the state prove the accused was subjectively aware of a high probability that he had placed the dependent in a dangerous situation. In that evaluating the defendant's subjective mental state in mind, the trier of fact must resort to reasonable inferences based on the examination of surrounding circumstances to reasonably infer the existence of knowledge. That the evidence supports the following reasonable inferences regarding Coffey's subjective mental state. Coffey forgot the child in the back seat of the vehicle. At the time he exited the vehicle and went into the house and became involved with calming his 2-year-old daughter down, laying down with her for a nap. When Coffey woke up, he assumed that the child was in her bed as usual and did not remember that the child was still in the vehicle. When Coffey went back out to the vehicle, he did so with the purpose of retrieving his wife's archery bow and not because he remembered that the child was still in the truck. The evidence also supports reasonable inference that Coffey was generally shocked by the sudden realization that the child was still in the vehicle. That the evidence supports the reasonable inference that Coffey did not have a subjective awareness that Aubrey was still in the vehicle from the time that he exited the vehicle and went into the house to when he woke up from his nap and went outside to retrieve the archery bow for his wife. That at no time did Coffey attempt to make any excuse for his lapse in memory. On the contrary, Coffey immediately accepted personal responsibility for his failure to act and the resulting crime. Despite Coffey not making any excuses, surrounding circumstance indicated that significant context of stressful events may have contributed to Coffey's subjective mental state, including the following: that he was physically tired from working different shifts than his usual schedule due to training with the Delaware County Sheriff's Department. Such schedule changes required him to adjust to the switch from night shift to a daytime shift work schedule, that he had been away the previous weekend on duty with the Marine Corps, that he was undergoing a change in the organization of his unit with the Marine Corps that caused him concern, that he was scheduled for another law enforcement training in Alabama on the coming weekend, that he had recently suffered the death of both parents, that the evidence was also supportive that Coffey had a history of otherwise acting in a conscientious manner with regard to the meeting and considerable and special needs of his daughter, including ongoing efforts to ensure that the child received appropriate medical care, nutrition, and special educational services. That the surrounding circumstance in the present case support reasonable inference that the effects of a tired, stressed, preoccupied, and distracted mind contributed to the accidental lapse in memory and awareness that unfortunately resulted in a tragic and severe consequence. That there was no evidence that Coffey made a conscious choice to leave the child in the vehicle to sleep with a subjective awareness at time that she was asleep in the back of the seat of the vehicle, as would have been similar to the conscious choice with the subjective knowledge of fact scenario. If the evidence had demonstrated that Coffey possessed such a subjective awareness, and then with subjective awareness had made the conscious choice to leave the child in the vehicle to continue sleeping, then the facts would have resembled the facts of Thames. However, Coffey explicitly denied that he had such objective awareness and they had made such a conscious choice to leave the child in the vehicle. There is insufficient evidence to prove otherwise. That when a defendant cannot be shown to have a subjective knowledge of the danger to which he was exposing their child, a conviction cannot stand. That in a criminal proceeding, the state must bear the burden of proof to present sufficient, credible, and admissible evidence to prove all the elements of an alleged criminal offense beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury. That the facts here raise a genuine sense of reasonable doubt regarding Coffey's subjective mental culpability to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the knowing element required for the criminal offense of neglect of a dependent. That when considering filing criminal charges, prosecutor must exercise discretion based on professional experience that takes into account the likelihood of a jury to convict under the totality of the circumstances. That in the present case, it is likely a jury would feel some degree of sympathy for Coffey under the totality of the surrounding circumstances, including his immediate acceptance of responsibility for his failure without excuse, the evidence of emotional distress that has suffered in a recent tragic death of his daughter due to his own accidental lapse of memory, and his history of otherwise acting in a conscientious manner with regard to meeting the considerable special needs of his daughter, including ongoing efforts to ensure that she received appropriate medical care, nutrition, and special education services. That a prosecutor has an obligation to enforce the law while exercising sound discretion, such as a prosecutor is not obligated to file or maintain criminal charges which the evidence might support. A prosecutor may consider a variety of factors and policies in the exercise of the discretion. As a matter of policy, the special prosecutors agreed with Dr. Klaus, who conducted the autopsy and stated that vehicular hyperthermia in children is best classified as an accident unless there is evidence of willful neglect or blatant disregard for safety. The circumstances present in this case did not involve aggravating circumstances such as alcohol or drug use, a historical pattern of neglect over a period of time, nor even a conscious choice made with a subjective knowledge to leave a sleeping child unattended, as was the case in the Thames versus State. Rather, the evidence in this case showed only a subjective lapse of memory awareness that, for the reasons stated above, the special prosecutors have concluded that no criminal charges should be filed and that criminal investigation into this matter should now be closed and no further action be taken. Conclusion of the special prosecutor: that based on the circumstances known to the state, based on the official independent investigation conducted in this manner, the credible admission evidence is not sufficient to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a criminal offense had occurred. The special prosecutors have therefore concluded that it is in the interest of justice that no criminal charges should be filed and the criminal investigation into this matter should now be closed, and that no further action be taken. Having discharged their duties in this case, the special prosecutors are now requested their appointment in the matter of the investigation under this be terminated. Respectfully submitted, Kristopher H and James Luttrell. And there that is. I've got like an adrenaline dump right there. This is just a sad situation, man. All the way around. I mean, it's It's a real sad situation. I am still looking into the situation. We will get the ISP reports when they provide them. I mean, this tells me a lot. I've got a lot of different thoughts because of this, and I am not prepared to make my statement based off of this case. This just came as a based off this information. This is giving me a lot. I want to have some time to soak this in and maybe reread some parts when I'm not reading it quickly for you guys. And we'll wait on the ISP reports, and I will give you my opinion of this at a later date. There are some things that shook me in this. There's some things that I definitely understand, and there are still issues I have. And I will still tell you, I think the biggest issue, well, no, I can't say that. The biggest issue is this happened. This horrible situation, tragedy. But I hate the fact that he was put back to work so quickly, period. I think he should have been laid off, paying if you want unpaid leave, or paid leave, I mean. He should have been off until this came out. I think the fact that he went back to work in January is rough. So that's where we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I will continue talking about this. As I told you, this very easily could be a part 2 or part 3. Last night's episode was a part 1. Tonight, obviously, wasn't meant to be a part 2, but it was. There will definitely be at least a part 3, maybe a part 4. So just stay tuned and stay loose. The best way for you guys to know what's going on is for you guys to follow what's happening by subscribing to the show. Hit the subscription bell on YouTube. Check out Facebook. Do all of that stuff. And go from there. You guys have a good evening. God bless each and every one of you. My thoughts and my prayers go out to this family that will be forever touched by this tragedy, and that little girl. It's such tragedy. You guys take care. Good night, and God bless.